Some people are not gonna like what I have to say, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Hey guys, I'm Kay Falcon and welcome back to my channel. I have literally tried to record this video like 3 times already, but you know what they say, the third time's a charm, so hopefully this one makes it out. Anyway, as you all already know, Amazon is releasing their new fantasy epic, as this article terms it, and last week I went through the trailer that they dropped, the first official full trailer that they dropped, and I mentioned that there is a particular article that Entertainment Weekly dropped that I wanted to go through, and we'll be going through that article today. Before I get started though, thank you guys for the comments on my last video. I tried my best to try to keep up with as much as I was able to keep up with, and yeah, I really appreciate your opinions. I really appreciate the time that you guys spent actually responding to my comments, especially with a lot of those comments I saw you guys giving your opinions about exactly what's wrong, and honestly I know there's a lot wrong with what Amazon is trying to do, and I'll expand on that a little bit more as I go through the article. But I just wanted to thank you guys for all your comments. They were very much appreciated. And for the recommendations, yes, I will be going through these. I'm currently on the Celebrimbor right now, and hopefully I get through them in a very timely manner. I might have to also reread a couple of times so that I can really fully understand what's being said. I also want to thank all the new subscribers. I appreciate every single one of you, and I really hope you guys like it here and enjoy my content. To all who are seeing this video and seeing my channel for the first time, I hope you guys also join the Kay Falcon family by subscribing and liking this video if you like it. As you all know, I'm running on a bit of a schedule, so I'll be trying to kind of go through this as quickly as I can. And quickly, disclaimer, I may be touching on some topics that are slightly controversial, but I just want to make it clear that this video is not to offend anyone. These are strictly my opinions based off what my observations are. Yeah, I may also ramble a bit. I apologize for that, but I find that every time I go through this article, there's always something that I like nags at me and I just keep rambling. But yeah, I'll try to limit that, but I hope you guys bear with me. Yes, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so the title of the article is Meet 13 Key Characters from The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. And what really grabbed my attention was the fact that they mentioned key characters. Now when I hear key characters, I'm thinking these are people who are important to the plot. As you guys know, this is an adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's work. They named it obviously The Lord of the Rings, and they're focusing in on obviously the Rings of Power, right? So I'm expecting that these are going to be people who are going to be important to the plot line for the Rings of Power, right? So let's see who are the characters that they're going to be pushing to the forefront in the series. So the first person that they focus on or choose to focus on is Galadriel. From my first video, we've already established that they seem to be pushing Galadriel's character to the forefront as the protagonist, to be like the main focus for the entire series, which I don't feel is entirely accurate. Well, she is important. I wouldn't necessarily consider her to be the main driving force behind the events of what happened during the Second Age. If I had to choose a protagonist, I wouldn't have chosen her. She is present, her story is applicable to the timeline, but it seems that they're even changing the important parts of her timeline that are applicable to the Second Age and to the plot in general. The Galadriel that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote, the author himself wrote, and the Galadriel that the fans know and love and were able to connect with was already a strong character in herself. To me, there was no need to change her to the extent that they have done. And that's not to say that she didn't participate in battles or she wasn't a fighting character to begin with. Yes, we have evidence that, especially in the First Age, she did participate in certain battles. She was part of the rebellion of the Noldor, which was basically driven by their need to go out in Middle Earth and claim land for themselves, rule themselves. She had a role in the Kinslaying, and obviously she crossed the Helcor Axes. We have been told that the Helcor Axes is a very harsh environment. It wasn't an easy journey, and she was one of those who crossed into Middle Earth using that method because, you know, Fëanor destroyed their ships. Her role from the point where she entered into Middle Earth became more of a political leader as opposed to a general or a soldier. If you look at her journey from the books, when she came to Middle Earth, first of all, she got married, right? She met her husband, she got married. She settled in certain cities, made a lot of connections with various people that were residing in Middle Earth at the time, but she wasn't a wandering character. Not only did she marry her husband, but she also had a child, and that child is actually Elrond's wife. That particular event is a very important event. I mean, without them, we wouldn't have had Arwen, right? It seems as if they're detracting from the storyline of her and her family, because we've been told that Celebrimbor isn't even in this adaptation, which is a major oversight in my opinion. I feel like these showrunners, by unnecessarily changing the plot to this extent and even the characters to this extent, is creating a problem that didn't need to exist. I don't have an issue with females being portrayed as fighting characters. However, when it's being adapted from an already established world and it's already established material, and you actively go in and change essential aspects to the character that fans related to. During the time that she was in Middle Earth during the Second Age, you see that she was with her husband and her child the majority of the journey. There was not really a point in time where she was traveling by herself and not traveling seeking out evil. That is in direct contradiction to what they're trying to portray here. And them switching Galadriel's character to that extent kind of sends the wrong message to women, in my opinion, because you're essentially telling women that in order to be seen as a strong female character, you have to be seen as a fighting type character. And I feel like their decision to switch her personality and her character also delves into a deeper conversation about feminism, which I really don't want to get too much into. I did find a video by a young lady that goes on YouTube by the name of The Authentic Observer. It's called The Desecration of Feminism. I found that video very informative and it kind of echoed a lot of my thoughts on the matter. It's a long video though, but I do urge you guys to check it out. It really resonated with me, especially aspects of it regarding motherhood. It's a very interesting conversation. I will link it down below if you're interested to watch it, and I would urge you to watch it. That change really upset me because not only does it disrespect what the author intended for the character to be like, but it also disrupts our connection to the character to begin with. Many females around the world were able to really resonate and relate with the character that Galadriel embodied, right? I mean, not only are you sending the message to women that in order to be perceived as a strong female character, that you need to embody more masculine traits in order to be deemed as more feminine, doesn't really make sense to me. Like, yes, it's nice to see strong female characters going out and battling and whatever, and yes, that is a reality of some women, but the reality of the situation for most women is the fact that we don't want to have to be physical in order to be deemed as strong. We want to be respected for what's up here, or brain, or intelligence, or wisdom. It's nice to have physical accomplishments, yes, but most women, we want to be respected by what's up here. That is what we were able to connect to the most. When they switch her personality to this extent, make her more masculine, you then sever the connection and the relatability to most fans of the character. And also you sever what the author intended to convey with her character. So when you scroll down underneath her gif, it says she now seeks peace and she can't shake the feeling that evil might be returning to Middle Earth. It says she now seeks peace, which is expected. There were a lot of things that happened during the First Age. It's everybody at that time is probably seeking peace. So yeah, but she can't shake the feeling that evil might be returning to Middle Earth. That particular line doesn't fit the character of Galadriel, in my opinion, because her focus at the time was not about seeking evil. As I mentioned before, her focus was literally finding a spot to rule over, finding a area that she can call her own. Her presence and her what happens during the Second Age is important to the overall plot. However, the way they're showcasing it just creates so many things that are very inconsistent with what the writings were and what the author intended for the character to be. In my opinion, very unnecessary. Moving on. The second character that they have here is Miriel. Now, as I already established, Miriel's character wasn't that important in the second timeline. I mean, yes, it was important, but she didn't really have much of a presence during this particular period, because her entire presence was literally just to legitimize Ar-Pharazôn's rule. I already mentioned that before in my previous video, but there's another disconnect with the TV show, because it seems as if the TV show is trying to portray her as a ruling queen, which directly interferes with the entire ruling system of Numenor at the time, because we know it was in the appendices, guys. The appendices says there were only 3 queens of Numenor. 3 ruling queens of Numenor. Let me actually get it. The queens of Numenor. So the first ruling queen was Tar Ankalime. I'm probably butchering that, but the second one was Tar Telperion, and the third queen was Tar Vanimild. Now, Tar-Miriel would have been the 4th queen. However, her throne was usurped by her own cousin Ar-Pharazôn, who forcibly married her to legitimize his rule. And so she did become queen, but not in the ruling sense. Her role was mostly on the sidelines. She didn't have any power, basically. By making her the ruling queen, you're essentially interrupting the entire line of ascension of the kings and queens of Numenor at the time, which, again, another plot hole, something that the author specifically wrote that they chose to ignore, and I don't like that. Now, I didn't really want to touch too much on the race aspect. Even mention it right now is because I realize that a lot of people seem to have issue with it, and I'll tell you more about my personal feelings after we go through this article, because I want to go through it as quickly as possible. But I can understand where a lot of the frustration comes from. Some people are doing it for the wrong reasons. However, when there's an adaptation of somebody's work, I personally like to see when they stay true to the character descriptions that were given. Now, Tar-Miriel, there wasn't much mentioned of her from the descriptions. There's this one line in the Silmarillion that is notable for Tar-Miriel, and that was mentioned at the time of Numenor's, Atlantis move, where Numenor basically fell into the sea and got destroyed. And I'll quote it. It says, "And last of all the mountain wave took to its bosom Tar-Miriel, the queen, fairer than silver or ivory or pearls." It may seem vague to some people and like open to interpretation to others. However, it says fairer than silver or ivory or pearls. Now, the word fair not just refers to her skin. In this context, it refers to her beauty. Fair is often used to describe somebody who's beautiful. However, it is notable that the author specifically mentioned fairer than silver or ivory or pearls. It's very interesting that he pointed out these three things to compare her to, because silver, ivory, or pearls, those things are notably quite light in their color and their hue. So by that sentence alone, you can infer that she was very light skinned, right? Because if they were referring to somebody who was darker in complexion, we would get more references to maybe copper, gold, deeper type of objects to compare her to. I'm kind of torn because I don't feel as if like she was that important, like that particular detail was significant with regard to the plot. However, I still don't like the fact that they did switch her identity, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. When the show begins, the island is led by Queen Regent Miriel. Okay, so they tell us literally that they're trying to push her to be Queen Regent, which, as I said before, directly interferes with the with the appendices that they have the rights to. It's specifically mentioned in the appendices, guys. It says American actress Adai Robinson, perhaps best known for playing Amanda Waller on CW's Arrow, portrays the regal ruler. She wasn't a ruling queen. You have very few people who you can confide in, and you're aware of the implications of any decisions that you make. She's burdened with the responsibility of making decisions for the greater good and wanting to maintain some stability in Numenor, but she understands that there are rumblings, there's something in the air. Again, she was not a ruling queen. She didn't have any decision-making power. If anything, I would have liked to see her character be more of a Varys type of character. I would have liked to see her more on the sidelines, trying to impact things from behind the scenes, trying to see how she tried to counteract her husband's movements. You know that, well, he's not an easy character to begin with, so she would basically had no power against him. But it seems like they're trying to push her to the forefront and switching her role again. And then you have the third character, Nori Brandyfoot. So there are no hobbits in the Rings of Power. That's correct. Those tiny pint-sized halflings didn't exist at the time of, but the show will include Harfoots, who are hobbits. It specifically mentions in the appendices that Harfoots are a type of hobbit. And they're saying early predecessors to hobbits all Tolkien's fan know and love. No, they are hobbits. Similarly diminutive in stature, these Harfoots haven't yet settled in the Shire, preferring instead to wander as nomads and live in close-knitted communities. Harfoots are described in the actual text as exactly the opposite. They weren't nomadic. They preferred to live in holes. Like, they like to settle in one place. In fact, hobbits in general, they don't necessarily like to wander outside of their comfort zone. That's one trait that they have. I even shouldn't really be having this conversation because Harfoots weren't mentioned during the Second Age. They didn't have a significant role in the Second Age, which is why it's very interesting that as a key character in this TV show, they have not just one Harfoot or Hobbit as a key character, that they have multiple. And I don't know, do they want their own Frodo moment? I have no clue, but it's another way in which they just don't stay true to the writings of the author. I'm just gonna skip over this one because, as I said before, Harfoots really don't have a significant role to play in the Second Age. So the fact that they even have her as a key character is astounding to me. Finally, it gets to Elrond, who is actually a key character, but at least he's another character who's actually important to the storyline and the plot. So I was excited to see him being portrayed. Okay, so he was a young Ned Stark. I didn't know that actually. When the Rings of Power begins, the young Elrond is not yet an elf lord. Instead, he's an ambitious young politician of half-elven heritage. Yes, he also got powerful family legacy to live up to. His father Arondir is a mythic figure who helped save Middle-earth from evil, and his brother Elros chose a mortal life, going on to found the human kingdom of Numenor. Unlike his brother, Elrond picked immortality and is now searching for his purpose in the regal elven realm of London. He's sort of battling with the past, or at least that's how I felt anyway. His father saved the world, which is a lot to live up to. Fair enough for his character. Being half-elven, what does that mean? You can read about that choice and you can read about what happened and why he made that choice, but as an actor you start thinking, well, how did it feel to make that choice? How did it feel to watch your brother go old and die even though you were born the same? I think that's a fair approach to go with his character. Elrond, he chose to have immortality, whereas Elros chose a mortal life, and when they die, they don't go to the same place. Like Elros, when he dies and he passes on, it's not they're not gonna meet in the afterlife. At least that's what we assume based off what Tolkien wrote. So it would be interesting to explore the feelings behind that, how it impacted him, that he's never really gonna see his twin brother. They're twins. I assume, especially with what they've been through, they had a very significant connection to each other. So it'd be interesting to really explore that particular choice. Then it goes on to Durin IV. Durin IV, he came into play mostly towards the end of the Second Age and early Third Age. His father, Durin III, is the one who actually got the ring. So I would have expected that Durin III would be a key character during this particular series or this particular age rather than his son Durin IV. So in the Fellowship of the Rings, Frodo and his friends journey into the abandoned caverns of Khazad-dûm, aka Moria. At the time of the Lord of the Rings, this once great dwarven kingdom has fallen into ruins, but in the Rings of Power, Khazad-dûm is still thriving, ruled over leaders by, like authors, Prince Durin IV. So it seems as if he's gonna be the ruling, but he said Prince Durin IV, not the king. So maybe his father is still in play. Well, I think we've seen his father, right? But it's interesting that they have him as a key character and not his father. So the Welsh actor plays a young dwarf with a fiery passion, deeply proud of his kingdom and loyal to his wife Disa. Okay, and then there's talk about him on set, about wearing prosthetics. He didn't really say much about the plot, but yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Like, it's just very interesting to me that they have him as a key character and not his father, who was the one who actually got the ring. And given that the TV series is called The Rings of Power, you are expecting that it's gonna show at least prior to the making of the rings, like maybe the motivations in making the ring, the final making of the ring, and the distribution of the ring, and maybe the destructions of some of them, because we don't really know the full details of what happened to all of the rings, right? So, and it goes on to another character called Arondir. Now, again, I normally wouldn't focus on the whole race issue, but I can understand why people are mad. And Tolkien, based off what he wrote it based off what he was surrounded with, right? At the time. So a lot of the descriptions from the elves that we see in The Lord of the Rings, it describes your hair as being mostly black, but you have blonde hair, silver, some redheads, and particularly their eyes are mostly depicted as gray. You have some that are blue, etc. Those are all European characteristics based off how the majority of the elves are described. I do feel as if there is an avenue for him to come in as a darker. I don't know how they're gonna, or if they're gonna explain it. I see an avenue. I mean, in the first age, before Beleriand got destroyed, the southern people who were darker in complexion were in roughly the same area as the elves, right? So theoretically speaking, there could be a line that emerges from there. That was one theory I saw going around. My theory kind of aligns with that theory as well, but I thought it would be plausible if they made him descended from maybe a thrall, like the union of a thrall and a human, like maybe make him half elven, right? They say that he's a Sylvan elf, and they don't mention if he's a half elf or not. That would be plausible to me, because as we know, thralls were basically captured elves during the time of Melkor. We all know that those who managed to escape, once they got back into amongst other elves would look upon them with suspicion, so they were often outcast, and some unfortunately passed, and some decided to go on and be solitary, right? And I feel as if there is an avenue where maybe some of those solitary elves eventually journeyed and created a line of like half elven creatures. Tolkien didn't really expand on those avenues, especially with thralls. He didn't really expand too much on that, so there is room for it. It would also explain why he seems to be a solitary character, because based off the teasers that I've seen, it seems as if he's more of a solitary character, and it also explains his associations with some of the humans during that time as well, and his connection with them more. So I feel as if there's an avenue for him, to be how he is. He's a soldier stationed in the Southlands, so as I said, it kind of fits with my theory about him being descended from maybe like a line of elves that mixed with people of the south, which explains his his complexion. But if they go with that route, I don't know if they're gonna do that and say keeps watch over the humans who live there, humans who centuries ago aligned themselves with the evil. So there's so many qualities to the role, but being a non-canon character, there's also bonus possibility. I don't have any issues with new characters. I just have a problem when they make so many of them relevant to a plot that's already been established that they had no connection with. I felt like a fertile landscape to create. I mean, that's the beauty of having original characters. However, I still feel as if you need to stay within the bones of the work that you're adapting, which I don't think they're doing. And that's not the fault of the actor, that's a fault of the screenwriters. But I think the backlash really comes from all the interviews that their reasoning behind it is just very odd to me. In the hierarchy of it all, he's just a soldier, so I wanted to explore that. But he has that energy, the fire, that determination, and the love he has for Bronwyn is the galvanizing aspect that carries him through this awesome journey. there's no need for the whole elf human romance again, because there's enough of that in the actual written work. There's no need to really create an entirely new story that goes along that line. So the next character is, of course, the person who he's gonna have this love connection with, Bronwyn, who is a human. Yeah, I think this is our first human that we've seen so far, and she really resides in the saltlands of Middle Earth, so we're gonna see a bit of the southern people, where she lives with her young son Theo and works as a healer. And then it goes into activism. As a people, they're trying to redeem themselves from the shackle of their past. She wants to liberate her people from that. This is an area that wasn't fully explored by Tolkien. If you go back to the Blue Wizards and everything in later writings of Tolkien's work, that he mentioned that the Blue Wizards, they may have something to deal with causing, like, you know, dissension during with some of those humans that allied with Sauron. So like his forces aren't as strong as they would have been by the time the events of the third age came around. So it would be interesting to see the effects of that, which would, I think, in theory, allow the Blue Wizards to come in play, but I don't hear any mention of them coming into play here. It seems as if they're using Bronwyn kind of in place of what the Blue Wizards could have done during this particular. And the character that I wanted to see the most and who I was most excited for, Gil Galad. I must say though, based off the outfit, it looked well in the trailer, but now that I'm seeing it up close, I feel like we need to have a fashion consultation between him and Thranduil. I don't like how they have him dressed, but I like the crown though, and like at least he's the only character that I've seen thus far, the only elven character that I've seen so far that actually looks elven, and he actually looks like what I think Gil Galad would have looked like. I just think he needs better fashion advice, personally. But, you know, that's beside the point. He's a character that I really wanted to see most of, and who I wanted to see being pushed to the forefront, because he is actually the one who's doing what they are having Galadriel do. He's the main driving force behind pushing back the evil in Middle Earth during the Second Age, pushing back Sauron, creating allies during this time. He is the king. He is the elven king, and he is not only the elven king, he is a warrior. Let's see what they say about him. So there's a poem recited in original Lord of the Rings where Samwise Gamgee tells the story, the fall of Gil Galad. I actually would have been interested to see the full poem fleshed out, because I think we only heard a snippet of it. No. But I don't think that they can. The right person to do so would have been Tolkien himself, but as we know, that's not possible. So when the Lord of the Rings of Power begins, Gil Galad is a stoic and ageless leader ruling over the golden elven realm of Lindon. He's ever vigilant in the perseverance of peace, and he soon starts to sense that something may be amiss in Middle Earth. They finally got something right. Everyone knows Gil Galad from the song that Sam sings, but there isn't a wealth of information about him in the text. My favorite part is that he has this odd gift of foresight. He's prescient and he's ahead of the curve. He can feel the pulse of evil rising. He's attuned to the life of at least somebody who actually understands their character. Now it comes to the character that has the most controversy based off her interviews. There was an interesting comment. It touched on her race a little bit. I thought that there is avenue to make her what she is. Just just because there's not really a lot of information about dwarven women in the text. So I felt personally that they had room to expand on that in the way that they saw fit. There's not really a lot of information told about dwarven women regarding their appearance, because we barely really see any information about them. So I felt that there was reason to describe her how they described her. I personally thought that, especially when you go back to the origins of the dwarves, there was only focus basically on the dwarven kings and how they came to form, but there was no real mention of their wives. It only mentioned really that when they awoke with their peer, with the exception of Durin, the Deathless, the first Durin. I had assumed that perhaps, as he had no partner that woke with him, he would have likely had his wife maybe coming from another dwarven tribe, one of the other lines of dwarves, which could explain the difference with her. However, there was a particular comment that I saw that actually, and it made sense, because dwarves usually dwelled underground, and hence they didn't receive much light, so it would make sense that they were more pale. So I see both ends of the spectrum. There is possibility either way. Here's the thing, at first I thought she was an original character, but then I went through the appendices again. In appendices A, there's a section where it says this was a daughter of Thrain II. She is the only dwarf woman named in these history. It was said by Gimli that there were a few dwarf women, probably no more than a third of the whole group. They seldom walk abroad except at great need. They're in voice and appearance and in garb, if they must go on a journey, so like to the dwarf men that the eyes and ears of the other people cannot tell them apart. This has given rise to the foolish opinion among men that there are no dwarf women, and that the dwarves grow out of stone. I feel as if maybe this character is like a variation of this. This was the daughter of Thrain II. However, I think based off the genealogy, Thrain II was like way after that. And it looks like this was the mother of Killy and Philly. So that wasn't even the this that they were talking about. It says Disa is married to Durin IV. And the two have a loving and playful relationship. She's also the first female dwarf in any screen adaptation of Tolkien's work.
Give it back! That's private!
Who is this? Your brother?
That is my wife.
And what is this horrid creature? A goblin mutant.
That's my wee lad, Gimli.
Incorrect. That's an outright incorrect statement. It also goes to show that she's not paying attention. Yes, she does have facial hair, although her sideburns aren't as obvious as her husband Durin epic beard. You guys already heard what I just recited, right? It says they are so alike in appearance that it's very hard to tell them apart. I look at her and I look at an image in the trailer especially, and you can clearly differentiate who's female and who's male. The next character is Halbrand. To be honest, I don't really know much about his character, and honestly I kind of don't want to know anything more. There was one thing in particular I heard, a rumor, I'm not sure if it's correct, that particularly upset me, and it's that they're trying to make a love connection between him and Galadriel. And based off the photos, like, we've seen that they're trying to put them in the same place, which upset me. Like, as I stated before, Galadriel's story during this time, she was already married, had a child, leave healthy relationships alone, Hollywood. Please. I don't understand what is the obsession with creating so much drama, between, like, literally creating love triangles for dramatic purposes. It's so unnecessary. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. No. No. Literally, it is so far from elven characteristics and personalities that elves are very faithful characters to their partners, and we've already established that she's a married woman at this point. There's only one instance of remarriage of an elf in what Tolkien wrote, and that was after his spouse passed, and that was after a long period of mourning. And I have, like, there's so much more I could go in with that particular relationship, and that was literally Finwë. His wife was literally the first known elf to pass away, and that was the only time we ever heard of a remarriage. It was so shocking at the time. Like, it's very shocking in the elven community because that never happened. Remarriage doesn't happen in the elven community. But specifically with this character, Galadriel's character in Celebrimbor, why are you trying to interfere with healthy relationships? I don't understand why. I can't. I'm just gonna skip over him because I'm just getting angry. I'm skipping over you. I can't deal with you. I'm sorry. What? Because there are a few things about Hal which are quite interesting, particularly his relationship with... He's coming from this place in his past where he's trying to let go of his past and move on. But in meeting her, she starts to illuminate some things in his mind and thinks about his past and his destiny that he hadn't considered. Leave healthy relationships alone. Please. Thank you. You can do what you want in original content, but don't mess with canon. Please. Oh my god. Okay, I need to pass. And we go over Sadoc Burrows. Again, he's a Harfoot, not supposed to be a key character during this particular timeline. Then you have Isildur. He had possession of the One Ring at a particular point in time, and his actions are what led to the events of the Third Age, which is what we see in the Lord of the Rings. So he's an important character. And then you come over to Celebrimbor. Now, he is a significantly important character because he's the one who actually created the Rings of Power. I was really interested in how they portrayed his character, but I think I have to say it, like, this is no offense against the actor in general, but he's supposed to be younger than Galadriel. His grandfather is Galadriel's uncle. Need I say more? Also, I'm pretty sure that, like, he's supposed to be a craftsman. He looks, I mean, in some aspects of a craftsman, yes, but like when I think of craftsman, I think of blacksmith, and when I think of blacksmith, like Jason Momoa in Conan the Barbarian comes to mind. Like, ladies, where is the lie? Tell me. I don't know. I am interested in Celebrimbor's story. I think he should have been higher up in the list because his role is extremely important. the title of this TV series is The Rings of Power, and he's literally the one who created the rings. So Gil Galad and Celebrimbor, personally, I feel should have been the two main characters at the forefront of this entire story. I have to wrap this up because it's getting way too long, but I just wanted to just give my overall final thoughts, especially about some of the more controversial aspects. I already told you guys that I see aspects, especially I see a lot of people, especially because of the interviews coming out, they're having a big push to diversity and inclusion, and because of that conversation, it invites a lot of negative feelings, which, you know, is being spun in various directions. My personal opinion regarding that is, honestly, I'm all for diversity and inclusion. However, I feel as if when you are adapting someone else's work, you have a responsibility to stay true to the characters that the author portrayed. After all, it's not your original work. You may have the rights to adapt it, but I feel like you also have to work within the confines of the work you're adapting. Remember, you are the one trying to adapt another person's work and bring that to life. You're not trying to create your own story. That's why you're adapting it, right? If you wanted to create your own story, then in that case, then you have no need to adapt another person's work. You just take elements and you just create your an entirely new world, an entirely new character depiction, and you have the freedom to do what you want to do with those characters. But when you're taking on somebody else's work, you have a duty to understand what the author or that person wanted to convey with their writing, and you have a duty to stay true to what they intended for their characters to be like, because again, it is their world. And especially when it comes to Tolkien's work, his work has been around for a very, very long time, and it has amassed a very, very large fan base, right? Which is the fan base that they're trying to appeal to, which is why they decided to adapt. However, what happens is people are already attached to the characters that they know and they love based off what was already written. So when they see an adaptation, they get excited because they're expecting to see those characters that were written into existence be brought on to life on screen in the way that they expect it to be brought to life. They're not looking for something vastly different, right? If they were, then they would be going to different content. They'll be seeking that out. In a sense, if you really think about it, you're basically putting words into the author's mouth when you change so much of what they are doing. And not only do you do that, you change the entire story, but you still slap on the title of what they wrote onto your work. That's sending the wrong impression to the fans, because that's not what the author intended. You're not staying truthful to what the author intended, and it's very disrespectful to not just the author but to the fans, because they connect with these characters. That content was around before you ever adapted it. That content had fans before you ever adapted it. If they didn't have a problem with how the characters were being portrayed, why are you changing it? I don't understand it. I don't. I feel like, yes, we need to be, diverse and inclusive, but when it comes to adapting other people's work, especially in fantasy, like, there are ways in which we don't necessarily have to have representation of everything in every single work. We can appreciate the art that other people bring to screen and still enjoy it. You know, if we want to see representation, don't mess with other people's work. That's my personal opinion. If you want to see representation, create your own original content. And if people want to see that, they'll go to see it. There's like so much more I could say on this topic, but I think I've already said most of what needs to be said. So I'm gonna end this here. I had initially wanted to watch The Rings of Power when it came out because I was really interested to see what trajectory that they were gonna head into, but I think we've gotten a virtual understanding of what's going on, and based on what I'm seeing, especially with the interviews coming out now, it's just serving no purpose except to upset me further. And I'm kind of over it at this point. So I don't know where I stand when it comes to that. I guess we will see as we get further up. I mean, if something changes, who knows? I mean, I guess I do have to thank them in some aspects, because now it just makes me more excited to see one TV show that I didn't even remember was coming out, The House of the Dragon. I mean, it's a prequel for Game of Thrones, which I loved so much up until the final season. But I guess I have to thank them in some aspects, because now I'm more excited to see House of the Dragon, and it has allowed me to overcome like all of the disappointment I felt from the last season of Game of Thrones, enough that I'm able to actually watch House of the Dragon, you know? So I guess I'll just head on over there and become the dragoness that I always wanted to be. You know, gotta have my representation there, at least with House of the Dragon, because we know that the author is directly involved in it. I know that whatever I see in that adaptation is what the author intended, and I personally have no problems with that. That's my entire thought on this, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video and we'd like to see more like it, please leave a comment. Tell me what you think about everything I've just talked about. Like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and follow me on all social media platforms. I'm K Falcon across the board. K Falcon on Instagram, K_Falcon on Twitter, and K Falcon on Facebook. So follow me here as well as there. I think that's it, guys. We'll chat to you later. Bye.